Hello everybody. Alright, so today somebody brought a couple of machines to me for upgrades. This is a Ender 3 original. It has the 20 by 40 extrusion. That's the biggest way you can tell the original from the Pro. The Pro has the 40 by 40. And it has the fan facing up like this. Everything else is pretty much the same idea as the more modern models in this one. It's a good little printer. There's nothing wrong with it. I just really don't like this extrusion. It is kind of, it makes the bed a little bit more play than I'd like that to have. I just redid the palm wheels in this, so it's brand new. It was really loose when I got it here, but we'll get to that in a little bit. For now, we're going to talk about the Sprite. I had a couple of people ask me to video this upgrade, so when you order Sprite, there's a Sprite and there's a Sprite Pro, and you can get just the extruder, or you can get the kit. This is the Sprite Pro kit. So this Sprite will be able to do up to 300 degrees if he wants to. That's the difference between the Pro and the regular one, is the internal full metal tube inside. It can go higher in temperature. So when you get the kit, you get all the wiring you're going to need inside of this. So got little instruction booklets and cards and stuff that come with it. It tells you different parts, like, did this break in shipping? If so, let us know. Alright, I think we have a problem with the shrouds breaking. So we have an extra set of both the heating element and the thermistor. The thermistor on the Sprite is tiny. You can barely see them in the packaging here, but they are super small. Alright, here's your wiring harness. This is important. If you don't get the kit, you're not going to get all this stuff with it that you need to convert the machine over. You're only going to get just the extruder. So this kit will plug into the board. This plugs into the Sprite. It's a nice long cable they give you, and it goes onto the machine. They also give you a hot end or carriage. That cable does not want to play along with getting out of the way. It's a hot end carriage that replaces the one that you have in there. This is for the Sprite mount, and it also has a place for the BL Touch. Comes with some hardware and an extra nozzle for mounting it. A couple zip ties in the box here. And if you have a BL Touch, it gives you the short cable to plug that into the board on the extruder. The extruder itself looks like this. Okay, this is a direct drive extruder. Like I said, this is the Pro version, so it can get hotter than the other one. This is where your BL Touch would mount onto this extruder if you have one. BL Touch, Sierra Touch, either one. And what happens with this after that is there's a short cable that comes off of the mount, off of the probe rather, and then it plugs in right here. That's why they give you that short cable. Everything else ships pretty much plugged in except for the heater. You need to plug that in when you get it here. I believe they do this because the wires are kind of stiff and delicate, and it'll break the plug in shipping. So there we go. We're going to plug that in. So there is the heat for the hot end. That's the thermistor wires right there. These little tiny guys, that little tiny plug. Alright, this is your fan outputs. Right here, rather. And this one, I forget what that one does. Oh, that's just stepper motor. Stepper motor and the fan outputs are right here. Both the cooling fan and the parts cooling fan. So that's pretty much everything for the extruder itself. So I'm going to put all this aside, and I'm going to go ahead and start to disassemble this part so you guys can see how to do it. It's actually going to be pretty quick. It's not a lot to this. Like I said, this one cable solution that they give you, that plugs into the extruder, and that's it for the hot end part. This part, everything's labeled. I mean, it's just plug and play in the board. It's not hard. It looks like a lot of wires, but don't freak out. This is really not that bad. And like I said, with everything being labeled the way they are, it makes it really simple to do. But we'll get into that because I'm going to be actually converting this machine completely. This is going to be going from the Ender 3 that it is today to what I call an Ender 3 V 1.5. And what that means is basically it's going to be the same frame and everything. It's going to get a different board because this is the noisy board in here. That's the only reason. If I had the regular quiet board in here, we wouldn't have to replace it, but it has the noisy board. So we're going to replace that. I'm going to replace the screen module. And the reason why we want to do that is we want to run Riscock firmware, and you can't run that on this screen. So you have to have the V2 version screen. Those are on the way to me right now through Amazon, so when they get here, we'll be putting those in. I'll show that part as well. But for right now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be converting this over to not only a Ender 1.5, but also we're going to get rid of this and put in the Sprite. So this will be not the same machine when we get done with it. Alright, we'll get started. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start firing this thing up, and wow, that's an ancient firmware in this. Fans already screamed at me when I turned it on. The only reason I'm turning this on is there's a piece of filament in here and I want to get that out, and I prefer to do that while it's hot. So I'm going to go ahead and heat up the hot end in this one last time before it goes away. So let me go ahead and start that process. 200, 201 is good enough. Alright, so while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and remove the glass plate from this. This customer has a glass plate. It's just a hardware store piece of glass that you can get cut size. Some people like to print on glass. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I actually like it. It doesn't have a texture. It does feel like he may have sprayed it with hairspray a couple times. I would personally put a glue slurry on this, but you can print right on glass. Yeah, there's definitely hairspray on this. Alright, so I'm just going to set this out of the way so nothing happens to that. Sorry for moving around, guys. I know probably isn't the greatest thing to watch, but alright, so what do we have for a temperature? 124, almost there. So once this gets up at temperature, I'm just going to yank this filament out, and then I'm going to start disassembling this completely. Both the extruder and the hot end, all of it is going away. Alright, we've got it all cleaned out now. Oh wow, that Bowden tube didn't even reach the edge of this. It's short. Well, it doesn't matter. It's going away. So I'm going to go ahead and take all this apart. Let me just grab a wrench, because that does not want to come off of there. I'm just going to crack it off this way. Okay, that's off of there. I'm not going to take that one off because I don't need to. Let's see if this is the right bit. It is. Alright, so all I'm doing now is just typical hot end removal. If you have an Ender V2, I really recommend buying the Ender 3 hot end replacement kit that's going to come with the shroud and the Ender 3 carriage, this guy. The reason why is the plastic shroud on the V2 is kind of junk, but the V2 shroud won't accept this box. You actually need this plate because the holes are a little different. So I just ordered a V2, or I'm sorry, an Ender 3 Pro backplate and hot end kit, and it's worth the money because that's it. The hot end is off. I'm now working with it in my hands rather than playing with all that plastic crap, which breaks after about 3 times of taking it on and off. I hate the things. I've actually bought them and had them arrive broken. That's how bad they are. This machine had a little bit of a leak. Not bad, but a little bit. It's also dusty, but that happens with fans. It's very typical to find this kind of dust condition inside of a hot end, especially if it's been running really good and he hasn't had to take it apart for anything. Yeah, it builds up dust. The fans on this shot, the bearings are gone in them. I heard them screaming when I turned them on, but we're not going to worry about that because they're going away. All of this right here is done. Alright, so now we get that off. We're going to go ahead and loosen up the belts on this gantry right here. The X belt doesn't get loosened up. Doesn't have to get removed completely, just loose. So we're going to go ahead and loosen these. Get the tension off, and slip it off like that. Okay, done. And go ahead and grab this tool And this, now when you're removing the, that's the wrong wrench, I want this one. When you're removing this carriage, you don't have to pull all the wheels, just the bottom one. And if you're careful, it'll just kind of stay together for you. So I usually put a wrench in the Allen head side, like this. Alright, there we go. We got it on the wrench. And I take this nut right off. I keep it in my tool, usually because I'm going to put it back on, but in this case I'm not going to. And then I make sure you get the washer. And gently and carefully remove the wheel, the bolt, and the adjustment, the eccentric nut. Okay, and then once you do that, this can be just tilted this way and lifts right away from the machine. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to put this right back together again in case we ever want to go back with this or put this on another machine or anything like that. It's good to keep it kind of complete like this. Okay, so that is off of this machine. I'll grab my replacement. And with the replacement piece, it looks like it's going to ride this way. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. You have two belt adjustments. This is because the Ender 3V2 is slightly longer on the belt, so you would need a further one out, and this one's shorter, or a close one rather. This one's shorter, so you need this one. So when I put this in, if it doesn't fit in the first slot, I'll move it to this slot. As long as I get it all together and tight again, then we're good. But they give you the option for which machine you're putting this on. This will fit both machines, apparently. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and crack this nut loose and get this wheel off. I'm going to do it basically the same exact way I did it when I put the other one on. So, Allen wrench back here, just to hold things. And I just use my driver. Get the nut off of there. And I'm going to go ahead and slide the wheel off. I'll leave everything else pretty much the way it is. The eccentric can stay, the bolt can stay. And it looks like this is going to go this way. So, make sure the belt's not in the way. I'm going to go ahead and hang it. And the eccentric's already on there, so I'm just going to slip the wheel back on while it's under there. And then I just have to put the nut back on. And I'm going to test this because I've seen it before where sometimes they put the nut the wrong way and it'll actually hit over here and stop it from hitting the switch. So let me put this on real quick, and I'm just going to try that to make sure that that clears okay. Yes, it does. This has a longer little reach tab that makes sure you hit it. Sweet. Good job with the design on that. I like that. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this up. I'm going to hold it with my Allen wrench on this side. Oh, came out of the groove there. And I'm just going to slowly, carefully snug this down. You don't want to go crazy doing this because you got to give everything a chance to kind of settle into the groove. There we go. Just like that. And I'm not going to tighten it super tight because I have to adjust it. So now I'm going to adjust my eccentric nuts. It's a little tight. I don't like how tight that is. So let's raise this. And I'm just going to go ahead and loosen that eccentric a little bit. Let's see if that gets better. Oh, the other way maybe. Right about here. Okay, so we want it so the wheels just barely spin in place. I mean barely. Alright, once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and tighten that nut down on the outside. The nylock nut will hold the eccentric where I just set it. Like that. Just test roll this a little. It's not too bad. It's a little tight, but it'll wear in really good. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and slip these belts back in their grooves. There's one. I know people watching this who have not done this before or not familiar with doing these belts are probably like, how the hell are you getting that so easily? Well, you just kind of get used to it. It's like anything else, you do it enough, you get quick. Alright, well, that feels pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this back up and get that properly tensioned. Okay, there's one. There's two. Let's see how that feels. That's a pretty good snap. I'm happy with that. We can always tighten it again later if we need to. Just lock these down. Alright, so there's my body, my carriage mount. So we'll bring the extruder out next. We'll set it right here. Stay. And we're going to need some hardware. Let's see what they gave me. That's a nozzle that can stay in there. Alright, so they gave me these screws. So I'm going to take these screws out of the way. These are part of the old hot end. We'll put them over here. Deal with those later. I have to ask the owner if he wants this stuff back. If he doesn't want it back, it'll just end up in my stockpile, but if he does, I'll put it right in this parts box. I usually give back everything I take off of machines unless they specifically tell me they don't want it back. Just in case they ever want to use it for something else, you never know. This stuff is pretty handy. Alright, so the way this works, there is 1, 2, 3, I know these three are definitely part of it. I have a bunch of screws here. I think I have 5 screws, so it's probably 2 more that are missing that go in here or they go on the side. But this kind of just literally will connect like this and hold on for you. And you just put the screws in. It's really that easy. These Sprites are really a nice extruder as far as how to work on them. Taking them apart's a little different. It's kind of difficult. There's a lot to them. I recently talked somebody through doing it. I have a Sprite that's broken here that I keep for reference for myself, but also to take videos of and show people who might be working on one of these Sprites on how it goes together on the internals. It's really not that complicated. It just seems so when you're taking it apart for the first time. You're like, wow, there's a lot to this. But it's really not that bad. As long as you go slow, take your time, take pictures, keep your screws separated, do the things that you got to do to make sure it works good, you'll be alright. Don't rush it. Alright. So, believe it or not, we're almost done with the hardware part of this. I know the people who asked for this video, like, that's it? Yeah, pretty much, that's it. It's really not a complicated upgrade. The hardest part is the board wiring, and then you have to change some things in your firmware. That's important. If you do this upgrade, you gotta make sure that you change things in your firmware. This will not work. Not at all. Alright. So that's pretty much it for that part of the hardware. The belt's already connected, tensioned, everything's good here. We're going to open up these ears, and we're going to go ahead and plug in my cable. Obviously this end goes down to the board, right through like that. This end plugs into the Sprite, and it is keyed, I believe. You go only one way. Yeah, it is. This is just a faint little square raised piece. I don't know if I can zoom in and focus that or not, but right there. And there's a spot for that right back there. It's like a keyed space in the plastic. And then you just kind of push this in. That snaps in place. And then I just kind of work it into this little upright support here. Like that. And like that. There you go. That is pretty much the hardware part of this. I'm going to reroute this down to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the extruder and the wiring. I don't need for that anymore. It has to get kind of neatened up. So we'll do that next. Alright, so we no longer need this extruder motor. So that can get unplugged. The Sprite plugs into this now. Unfortunately, this wire has to stay because this will drive my X motor and my X limit switch. So this doesn't go away, it's just this stays unplugged. And that's going to bother some people, I understand. I would just probably maybe put some electrical tape around it like this, nice and neat, so that, you know, you don't think that there's a plug and plug. You see it all the time and drives you nuts. Some people just don't like stuff like that. I get it. Alright, so Everything else, as far as the motors go, Z, Y, they all stay. Limit switches stay, no matter which limit switch you have. If you have the touch, that's going to get wired up here. If you have the limit switch, it'd be right here, and still wired in. That's fine. In this guy's case, he does have the limit switch wired in. He doesn't have a touch, so this is still going to be in play. So other than unplugging this extruder motor, and you can leave it or you can remove it. I like to remove it just to get the weight off the gantry, because you're adding weight here. That's about it. So let's go ahead and just pop this off. This only takes a minute to do too. If you've seen these installed before plenty of times, and you know how uninvolved they really are. It's about 3 or 4 pieces to it. So we'll start with loosening this up, and we're going to get the spring out of here. Oh, I think use a different screw for that one. Let's see. Oh, that's in backwards. Oh, that's going to be fun to get off. Alright, well, in that case, we'll just take this out. We'll keep our thumb here to keep the tension off of it so we're not stripping the screw out. We'll just remove it as one piece. What happened is the screw that holds the, or adjusts the spring is in wrong. So when I go to take it apart, I can't take it apart like I normally would. Well, you can work around that, it's not a problem. So these are some of the things I also want to point out while we're here. Maintenance items that you should be looking at when you're looking over your printer. Palm wheels, you should be checking those for tension against the frame. You should be looking for excessive wear. They're really cheap to replace, not a big deal. Really easy to do too. I've done videos on that before. Alright, let's get this out. See, this spring here is, or the screw right here is supposed to be like this. The spring goes against it, and there's supposed to be a cup that goes in this end of the spring. That this screw right here would be fed in from this direction and go against that cup and adjust the tension of the spring. So this is in backwards, but not a big deal. It's going away anyway, so we don't care. So back to the maintenance items that you should be looking for. Some of the things that you want to kind of look at as you're working on your printer is things like this gear, the palm wheels, the belts. Always keep an eye on stuff. Usually every 3 to 6 months I like to kind of take my machine and go through everything. I touch all the palm wheels. I go through and just check all the stuff on it. Make sure everything's looking okay and not wearing out really bad. Because you can catch a lot of things before they become real problems that way. Avoid downtime. Alright, so we're just popping these screws out. 3 more screws that hold the motor in. More up here. This last one came out with the arm. Okay. Like that. I'm just going to put it right back where it got it. And as you can see, if you have another Ender 3 kicking around that you were working with and something happened with the motor, the extruder, you're pretty much good to go. That gear's not in too bad a shape. It looks pretty good. And if I put this all back together and fix it so it's assembled correctly, this will be like one model unit that's just like ready to bolt onto your machine and go. It's kind of nice to keep spare parts like that. I like to definitely keep things handy for situations where you've got something broke or went down and you just have another part just hanging around waiting for you. That's kind of nice. So this spring goes like this, but there's going to be a cup. And I have plenty of spare parts. Let's grab something here. Find one. I've got one here somewhere. I know I do. There's one. This is from taking machines apart and fixing stuff, upgrading stuff, and when people don't want this stuff, this is why. I keep all of it in boxes and whatnot, and it gets reused as needed. So this is the way this actually gets assembled. This screw goes in like it is. The spring goes against that screw, and it holds it there. and this gets kind of snapped in like that. Alright, then this screw goes in here on this end. I know there's a little bit of a sidetrack here, and it's just good for people to see things that they don't get to see all the time. And that'll hit that cup and tighten up. You can use a longer screw if it doesn't go all the way in, or if it doesn't, tighten up. Use a longer one and push that cup even more. But that's what adjusts your tension on your filament going in. So there you go. This goes in the guy's parts bag if he wants it. It's a full metal extruder with a motor and a gear all ready to go. Alright, so let's go back to this. So there you go. We've taken that off. It's now missing. This will end up into the bottom of the machine next. That's where we're going to go next with that. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this on its side. And you make sure when you flip it on its side you're not hurting anything. In this case, we're really not. Now this is going away. So I'm going to go ahead and set that down. Like that. Okay. Oh, hello electronics bay. So we'll go ahead and remove this. It's been a minute since I've opened up an original Ender 3. Usually it's V2s or Pros. I think I have to remove screws in the front of this. I do. No card in there. Make sure your card isn't in when you're pulling this cover off so you don't damage it. You damage the card, you can damage the slot the card goes in. And neither one of those is a great situation. Wow, those are tight. Good job on keeping your bolts tight. Alright, so pull that off, pull this off. I believe that's going to free up this whole module. There might be a screw on top. I don't quite remember on these. Yeah, it feels like there is. Oh, we'll take a look. Yeah, I think these have to come out. On Pros and V2s, it's one screw up here, which is a lot of times missing, and then 3 on the bottom. You don't have to mess with the front cover. This part right here. You don't mess with these screws. Well, this is a trip down memory lane. Alright, let's take that one out and see how that does for us. That is on tight. There we go. That dropped the board. So I'm going to pull these screws so I don't lose them. And we'll slide this back over on the side. So, this is a lovely setup. This is the X limit switch right here that's holding this board the way it is. So, when these boards ship, a lot of times they ship with this glue on them, and you have to kind of get that glue off of there. I've covered this a couple times in other videos, but if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to find the right tool for it. Usually I use my nips to kind of peel the glue off, which are, at the moment, MIA. Let me go find those. Okay, so I got my nips here, and usually I just kind of very carefully get in here and find the edge of the glue. And if you can get it started, it'll peel off in a strip. Of course, this is going to make a liar out of me and not want to come off. None of it will. Awesome. This is some tough glue. Alright, there we go. Alright, so I got the edge of it. I'm just going to peel it right off. Just don't squeeze too hard, and otherwise it breaks like that. Try and get the one I want out. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm lifting on the edges of the connector so I don't pull this off the board. If you pull these white things off the board, it's not a big deal. You just pop right back on, but I try to avoid it. There we go. I just wanted to disconnect this one. This is the X limit switch, and if you look closely there, it says, or Z, I'm sorry, Z limit switch. It says a Z on it. That is this switch right here. That's fed through this corner. Alright. I wanted to get that off because it was kind of holding the board just like this fan one is now. So same thing. I'm just going to kind of get my snips in here, and I don't know if you can see how I'm doing that. I'm just getting right under this little lip in the plastic. I'm not really squeezing the handles together. I'm just kind of using it to rock and convince that wire to come out. You don't want to pull by the wires because you can hurt the connector right out. Alright, so there we go. That's everything there. Oh wow, that's a I see why he wanted to upgrade. That's a 1.13 board. Ew. Gross. Alright, well, we're doing a board replacement at this point anyway, so what I'm going to do, rather than try to fight all these connectors with it connected to this plate, and even if I wasn't replacing the board, you'd probably want to do it this way. I'm going to go ahead and separate the board from this metal. So, this is, I think there's 4 screws on this to hold it in. There's one. There's one buried right there. There's one in between X and Y right here. And I believe there's one on the edge there. Right here. I think that's it. Yeah, it is. Okay. There's going to be screws falling out because the 4 of them are now like rolling around in here. Don't worry about that. There's one right there. This is why you keep these little test cubes you print out, these hollow ones. They make great screw cups. So these are motherboard screws. Keep them separate. Everything else, I know what they are already. I don't have to worry about keeping those separate. But alright, so this is out of the way. And this is an old Creality V1.13 board. This was one of the first Ender 3 boards they made before they started getting into the 4.22 and 4.27 series boards, which were much better boards, obviously. I believe this is an 8-bit, and I think the 4.22 and 4.27 are both 32, but I'm not totally positive on that. What I'm doing right now is just kind of getting the glue off of this connector so I can get it out. There we go. I'm going to check that. Make sure I didn't get any wires. If I do, I'll just replace this cable. I'm not sure I did or not. I might have. I'll replace the cable anyway. I have a whole bunch of them over there. Because I don't like the way that one looks now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this glue off as best I can without hurting anything. And we're going to go ahead and lift these out one at a time. Like that. Now, if you don't know like how to change these boards, if you don't know what goes to what, it's a really great idea to take pictures of everything. So you can kind of like use the pictures as a reference to put it back together if you get lost in it. I've been doing this, I think I could probably do this in my sleep. I've been doing this for so long. There we go, just pulling these out. Okay, those are out of the way. That'll expose this. No ferrules, as you can see. We'll be fixing that. I don't believe in not putting ferrules on. So I'm just going to loosen these screw heads and they're going to let the wires out. Surprisingly, these are nice and tight, so either this guy has been in here checking or they just stay tight. They're pretty good. Okay, that's the hot end. Oh, that was loose. That was real loose. These are important ones right here. These should be tight. That wasn't even barely tight either. They come loose over time with these soldered tinned ends because these get soft and they change the height. And they get, once the screw gets loose, that jaw will get loose. And that causes heat, which eventually will cause damage. And if you let go long enough and enough heat goes through it, it can actually cause this to burn. So, kind of a word of caution there. Always put ferrules on. Wow, those was tight in there too. That's pretty squished. Alright. 2 more connections here. These are also very important connections. These are your main board. Let's see how loose these are. Oh yeah, didn't even have to hardly touch it. I mean, I'm putting no force in turning that. They pop right out. They don't look thermally damaged. A little bit on the positive, a little bit there, but nothing bad. 4 more connections. These are your stepper drivers. These control your motors. You can see the same thing with the glue. This is a much better example of pulling this stuff off because it just comes right off. I'm just grabbing it, pulling it off. Then I'm going to use these, flip them over, and wiggle underneath the plug. That's really the best way I've found to deal with these guys, so you don't hurt anything. Just be careful you don't like cut anything or stab yourself or do anything stupid. Alright, there it is. Board is out. So, back to this harness, we have to remove some of this, because some of this is no longer going to exist in this machine. So we've got this tape here. I replaced this tape with duct tape that I have, some black duct tape, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim it to rip it open, trying not to cut anything on the inside, shroud, wire, any of that stuff. I just want to get it started so I can peel it off like that. These are my main power boards, or power wires rather. Actually, yeah, that's a power supply. And I'm going to cut the zip tie. We're just separating everybody right now because some is going and some is staying. Alright, let's see what we got. So, harness is all apart now. You know, everybody out there's like, oh no! Yeah, don't worry, it's okay. So, old hot end, fans, whole deal. Old harness, old hot end connections. Just like that. Just gonna wrap that up. This will go back to the original owner if he wants it. Otherwise, this will end up replacing somebody's V2 hot end. Okay, back to this. So what we have left here is we've got the bed wiring. This stays. And motor wires. This is my Y limit switch, Y motor. This is the harness for what will now be Z motor, Z limit switch, or I'm sorry, Z motor, X motor, X limit switch. This extruder wire, actually, you know what? I'm going to remove it. You can peel it right apart. We don't need this extruder wire here anymore. That makes this harness a little thinner, make more sense, and when I dress it all up in the end, it'll be easy to work with. So, this is the extruder wire, the old one. Again, I'm going to go ahead and package that up. If the owner of this machine wants it, great. He will get it. If not, I will throw it in my massive pile of wires back there. So if somebody has a broken wire, cut wire, or something like that, I have a replacement. That's actually part of the machine. Now, back to this. I can't tell if I got that with the nippers when I was getting the glue off, so I'm going to replace this cable just to be safe. We'll do that with the screen upgrade because it'll come with a new cable. Alright, so yeah, see, things like this, I do make mistakes. X motor wire, that's going to stay. So everything that's here will stay. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep calling this X, it's Z motor. And this is the replacement harness. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a way to kind of neatly manage all this together. I'll do that after I get this in place with the new board. So now we're at the stage where we're ready for the new board. I am going to be replacing the screen on this, so I'm going to flip this back up. Just like this. Turn it towards me. And we're going to go ahead and pull the screen off. I mean, the screens on these are not very hard to get off. Literally 2 bolts. This whole assembly goes away. The only thing I don't like about doing this this upgrade, I love what it does to the machine because it brings out so much more power with the operating system it gets, but it leaves like these blanks. So when you get those blanks like that, you can 3D print covers You can do colors, you can do whatever you want, black, whatever you want to do. So that goes in the parts pile too. All these things will go back to the owner. The new screen has a mount that goes right here and here. And the new board will go in here. This will be hooked up. That's all I can do for now until my parts get here. So when I do get in, I'll pick this back up and I'll show you the rest of it. Okay, so I have my parts in finally. I'm going to continue on with this this upgrade. I want to point out that this customer used solder seals to make a connection here. This was where the quick disconnect was, and he bypassed it. There's nothing wrong with that. Solder seals are a great way to make electrical connections on printers. I actually have an entire kit over there for this purpose. These work amazing. Use them with a heat gun, not a lighter. You need to have a slow but steady source of heat. Flame is way too much for them. It'll just burn them. But it works like heat shrink. So basically you have two pieces of glue inside plus the solder. So I usually hit it from one end and glue it in place, and then I'll just continue on across, come back and melt the solder. And then once you see it flash across the wires, you know you're good. So in this case, however, all we need to do is put ferrules on, which are a different thing. This is my ferrule kit right here, and I have the tool over here on the side of me. So I may have done this in other videos, but I'm just going to do a couple of these on screen so you can see it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to snip the solder off. Like that. I'm going to grab my wire stripper. And usually about this much back. You kind of gauge it after a while. It's just the part of the ferrule that's metal. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, and I believe that the power supply takes blue. Let's see how tight these fit. You want to find the ferrule that fits the wire as tight as you can. You don't want it really loose on there. And that one's really loose, so let's try black. See which size I need here. And this is what I mean about stripping it. You want to strip it so it just goes past the metal. So you can see it poke out the end and make sure it looks good. That's pretty tight. I'm going to go with that. I'm just going to grab my tool. Which won't come off the screw. Here we go. Alright, so all this does is it goes on there like that. And it kind of crushes it down in a square shape. I don't know if you can see it here. But it's a square shape, so when it goes into the jaws on that board, like this, it goes in there, and these jaws will actually clamp down on it from the top and the bottom. It'll have a nice even surface to grab, and it can't heat up, melt, change shape, and back off. These are permanently tight. Still check them every 6 months or so, but its vibrations do loosen up screws, and then I usually will just trim a bit off of this because they're a little long to go on those boards. Alright, I'll do one more for you. Twist your wires up nice and neat. Grab your ferrule, slide it on. It's going to slide over the metal. Oops, that's a stray wire. Push it all the way down to the wires come at the end. Crimp it. Alright, you see the wires are sticking out the end. Give it a tug test, make sure it doesn't come off. And then I just trim it down to fit the board a little better. Okay, and that's how I put ferrules on. I will point out that the kit that I got with Sprite, as you can see, they're long, but they have ferrules. So I'll trim these down as I put them in. But as you can see here, Creality is putting ferrules on the end of the wires finally. Anything has a connection like that. So they've been paying attention to what's going on out there. I'm glad to see something like this. Hopefully this trend continues. Okay, so let's get into setting up this board. First thing I'm going to do is our power leads. Now when you get these boards, a lot of these times these screws on these are all tightened up. So you have to back them down to open the jaws. And if you look in there, you see that jaws coming down like an elevator. Same thing on this one. Get the lock in there. Come on. There we go. Just gonna lower it down. And then the wire goes in right here in this little gap. And when you tighten it, it squeezes it between this top metal right here, this bottom metal right here. That's why ferrules are good, because that's a square hole. This is a square peg. Makes sense, right? Back to Sesame Street. Alright. So, I'm going to go ahead and slide that in between there. And tighten this up. Now, I want to make sure this is pretty good and tight. I don't want this coming out. Okay. Give it a tug. It's in there good. Same thing with this one. Slide it right in there. Tighten down on it. Give it a tug test. Make sure it's not coming out. And you should be good to go with those. It's pretty straightforward. Oh, that one's not all the way in. Hang on one second. Okay. Get you all the way in there. Sometimes you gotta hold it kind of with your fingernail on the edge of the plastic there to keep it. It's a little tricky to do, especially when you're trying to do it on camera so somebody can see what you're doing. I do a lot of things on camera, weird angles, so I can show you what I'm doing versus what I would actually do in real life. So it does make it a little difficult. Alright, so this is going to go through this cutout and mount right there. So that's good the way it is. Next I'm going to do my hotbed. This is part of the original harness. It's a little bit, this braiding's just a little long, so it's a little puffy, but that's alright. It doesn't hurt anything. I'm going to slide it back out of the way for now. I've got my ferrules here. Now on the bottom of the board, these are marked, just so you know. For the mains, 24 volt in, you get your negative and your positive right here. For the bed, it doesn't matter. Neither the hot end or the bed, it doesn't matter. Some of these have had voltages on marked out positive and negative before, but this is just a loop. So it's going to go in one, come out the other. So it doesn't matter which way these go at all. But I'm going to go ahead and back off the bed screws here. Lower that jaw so I can put these in. Get it pretty wide. There we go. Now, another tip I'll tell you, if you're putting these wires in these boards while it's in a machine, and you're working at weird angles and things like that, sometimes what you're going to find is these jaws will kind of like not stay all the way open if it's like upside down. If you're working on it like at this angle, and you see this jaw right here, it wants to kind of like fall down, and then when you try to put the wire in, the wire won't go in. You can end up underneath it. It's just a pain. So what I do is I'm putting the wire in. This is held in by the board itself. It's attached to the machine, so ignore my hand holding this. Pretend it's still attached. If you push up on the screw, the jaw opens up. You slide your wire in, and then you can go ahead and tighten it. That's just a trick. You see how that just falls right back down again. Because when you're trying to put those wires in this crammed little space and you're fighting with this thing, it is frustrating as hell. But that is a trick to make sure that the wire is going to go where it needs to go. And that's why you also tug test after you tighten it to make sure you weren't underneath the jaw and just tighten the jaw without the wire in it. So there you go. There's that part. Alright, so let's get these put in. Again, polarity does not matter here. Weird grip on this so I can show you what I'm doing here. 1 second, guys. Let me back this up. There we go. If you have to fight with your shroud like this, it won't stay back. Use a zip tie. Just like this. Temporary zip tie just to hold it. Now it can't come and get in your way. There you go. Hopefully everything's on camera. I'm trying my best to do this, but recording alone is kind of tough. It'd be easier if somebody is recording for me, but nobody's want to sit here and listen to me ramble about printers and record stuff. Okay, so that's tight. Same thing with this one. Jaws down. Get the ferrule to go in there. Come on. Why is everything fighting me today? Seriously. Stay. Okay, that's in there. Get them tight. We'll tug on them. Make sure they don't come out. Those are in. Not exposing any wire. No silver showing. Looks good to me. Okay, so that's that set. Next thing we have to install. We can put this in. Now I know this is coming from the hotbed, and on the board, it's like, and these are all labeled out. TB, TH. TH is thermistor hot end. TB is thermistor bed. So we know this one goes here. We'll snap that in while we got it out. Like that. Get the glue off there. Okay. That's plugged in. We can also do our stepper motors that we did keep. Alright, so here we have our Z, which goes right up to this motor right here. I kind of put a zip tie around this just so I wouldn't forget anything. It's a reminder to myself to make sure they all get plugged in. Alright, so here we have the little labels, Z. So we'll find Z. This is X, Y, Z. And we'll plug that guy in. Make sure it snaps in there good. And then we have on this one, I think this is going to be probably X. It's not Y, Y's over there. Yep, X. So X goes here. And the limit switch goes across the board over here. They labeled again X, Y, Z. So X here. Okay, this is a Y set. I can tell it comes right from that motor, so I'm going to look it up. So we'll put the Y in. Again, snapping good. Flush. Perfect. And here is my Y limit switch. Right there. Okay. Z limit will plug in when we get in, put the board in place, because otherwise I'd be stuck to that. So I'm going to go ahead and free up my captive shroud here. I don't need that anymore. Let that slide back to where it belongs. We might actually zip tie that at the board, make it nice and neat. Yeah, I don't see why. It won't hurt anything. So put a zip tie on that. Keep it tight so it looks good. Inside the machine you can't see it. Outside you can. Just bring all this down like that. Underneath where the zip tie is going to go, and then tighten it up. Tail off. There you go. So there is a bulge here, but it looks much nicer on the machine. And this all gets hidden under here so you won't see it. Alright, so now we have extruder motor. Oh, let's see, where are you? Oh, that's right, we don't have that anymore. We eliminated that because it goes in this cable. Oh, this cable. Haha, here we go. Fun, fun. So we've got heat, that's the hot end. We've got fan, that's the cooling fan. So my last of my electrical connections. Alright, so again, we're going to back these screws off. These don't have to go down as much because these are tiny wires. They're not really heavy. Okay. Open these up too. Now, the fan matters on the polarity because it's a fan, not a resistance circuit like a heater. So we're going to find those wires. Okay, heat, fan positive right here. On the bottom of the board it's marked positive. So we're going to make sure that goes in there. We're going to trim it first. I don't like how long these are. Okay. If you don't trim it, it won't go in all the way. You can have it hanging out with the silver part, and it's just not, to me, that's not a good idea. All right, above the jaw, I almost put it under it. Tighten that down. Tug test. Okay, I'm looking for fan negative now. Fan negative. So that's the negative wire. Trim this back. Make sure we're going under the jaw. Now you can see I was getting kind of crowded here. It's fun. But it's alright. We get it. That's why it's easier to do this outside the machine versus while it's on the machine mounted, because it's a lot harder to see what you're doing and getting everything in. And this way here, it's just way easier with it in your hands. I'm actually going to plug my thermistor for a minute because it's kind of in my way. Come on. Come back out of there. Boy, it likes that spot. It doesn't want to come out. Alright. Just want to back that out so I can get my heater wires in here without that being in my face. These don't matter for polarity, so I'm just going to grab this one so it's nice and close. Trim it. Come on. I don't have my glasses on, so it's hard to grab these wires. Alright, those are trimmed. Make sure we're above the jaw. We are. Tighten. Tighten. Tug. Good. We got it. It bit it down. And my negative. That's nice and tight. Alright. TB, this is the bed. Okay. While we're here, let's find what else we have here. K-fan. Well, that can go in, that's not going to block anything. K-fan goes right here. Alright, it's marked on the board. I throw things in. I'm sorry if I go quick with that because I've done this so many times I know where they go. But I'm trying to, also show you guys as I do it. This guy's not labeled. Well, I'll bet you that's got to be my thermistor, but that's kind of not great. That's not labeled. Well, CR Touch, also BL Touch, same cable. We'll plug that in last. This is my X motor. Man, this does not have a lot of play in this harness for this board. I don't like this. Let me see if I can get some play here by peeling this. Will it peel? Yeah, it will. It doesn't like to, but it will. Okay. Kind of separate these a little bit. The reason why I'm just doing this is it's not going to reach across as one unit. Just be very careful doing this. Won't hurt anything. Don't pull any stripping up. Don't strip the wires off. Like pull the insulation. Alright. So what do we have? This is crossed into this. Let me separate these guys. They don't have to be like that. That's dumb. Let's get that out of there. There we go. So you are labeled E for extruder. So that's my extruder motor. It's going to go all the way over there. This is going to be a little messy. Now to clean this up with some zip ties. Alright, so there's my extruder motor plugged in. So now all of my stepper motors are plugged in. Thermistor hot end. Okay. So that one's labeled. That one goes there. TH. What are we missing here? We're looking for my Z that's in there. This one is for this fan. So those two, I know what goes there. We'll just plug this CR Touch in. Now, it's only being plugged in. There's not one hooked up, so you don't have to do anything with this. This is just so in the future, if this one gets added, if this customer says add one, they just plug it in up there. They don't have to open the board. It's already plugged in. The only thing they would want to do is unplug their limit switch, just so it's not interfering. Okay. This guy's a mystery. I don't know what this one does. I'm going to have to figure that out. It's not labeled. Let me think for a minute here. Well, this is cute. Alright, so I got the book out that came with it. And there's my 3-pin connector that I can't figure out because it's not labeled. And there's my 2-pin that's not labeled. And they're not labeled in the instructions either. What the hell, Creality? What the hell? I don't know. I'm guessing that this cable maybe used multiple printers and possibly, it doesn't specifically say this is for an Ender 3, but I'm just wondering if this cable is used for multiple printers and these do something in those printers that it doesn't do in this one. I don't know. Well, we're going to hook it up with those unplugged. We're going to test it. We're going to see what it does. Thanks, Crowdy. Appreciate it. know, I'm glad you got to see that. It's important to see that, you know, somebody who works on these all the time still can run into things they haven't seen before, which happens when you guys know. A lot of the things I do, I have to kind of learn as I go. But it can happen to anybody where you have something you don't know about. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and, before I put those in, I think I'm going to mount this to the plate. So this plate goes in like this, which means my board goes in like this, facing out. There's my slots for my card and USB. So I'm just going to place it where it goes, and it should line up with the holes, and it does. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my stick and some screws, and yeah, go ahead and try and do that. That's fun to do. You get good at getting screws to balance on these magnets, and they don't always stay either. I'm just going to get one started just so the board stays where it goes. I'm not going to go all the way down with it. I'm just going to kind of get it just so it holds it there for me. Now I can maneuver a little better. I'll get this on the end of my stick here, and we'll put this one in. And again, I'm just starting these. The reason is this board tends to need to adjust a little bit around to get all the holes to line up. It doesn't always, you know, if you set one down too tight, you might not be lined up, and then you can't get them started. I don't think that one was in anything. Oh, it did. Okay. I think I need one more, right? 1, 2, yep, right there. Alright, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and arrange all my wiring. Plug in the things that I couldn't plug in because of the weirdness of where it was. This has changed on the V2. It's not quite as difficult. You only have the fan, and it's on the cover, and it comes out of the way. Everything else stays. It's not like this in the V2 or the Pro. This is only an Ender 3 original thing. So I just plugged in my fan where that one goes, and now I'm plugging in my Z. I already know where they go, but obviously if you're doing this, make sure you've looked at the board and figured it out, because once you plug those in, this is as far as you can take the board out. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of test fit this. I'm not going to put it in permanent yet, because I want to get the idea of where my wiring is going to end up, where I got to zip tie things and tape things and all that. So I'm going to put a zip tie right there. Alright. This is going to go with that, but for now, that's fine. Stop. Double check this, make sure that it's okay with that. And I can put my tape on it. It is. That will work. This will go right with it. Alright, I'm going to grab my tape. This is what I use for protecting these wires. It's a really nice Gorilla brand duct tape. It's super adhesive. Anybody who's worked on a machine after me and had to take this off will know just how sticky this stuff really can be. It grabs and it does not want to let go. And the only reason I put this on here is just to protect these wires from this metal. Because it's kind of like, I'm going to put my zip tie if I put that on. It's kind of, it can rub on this and get cut. But that tape will give it a chance where it won't. Let's throw a zip tie on this end. Just kind of hold it so when I tape it, it doesn't get messy. Okay. Creality is known for like a cloth tape here. And a lot of times that tape gets removed when you're doing any kind of work. So I found that this duct tape works pretty well, just to protect it. And I'm going to put this in there. this like this. And I believe it's this screw right here. Nice long screw. Let's go through and into the frame, which is the holes right here. So I like to kind of, I had a friend of mine who had a trouble with this just the other day. So I kind of try to like look at the hole and line it up, and then put the screw in. And I missed. There we go. Yeah, he had a hard time getting this on there. I mean, I told him it's a tough one to figure out how to do it. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. And that's how I do it. I usually line that one up like that. So that's that for putting the board back in. We're going to bolt up the rest of this. I'm just going to flip it back up on this top here, like it's supposed to be. And we'll put the rest of the screws in. Okay, so I think that's this Allen wrench. I think. Yes. Just making sure you guys are in frame. So, with this, we have to kind of like get this line back up. And kind of squeeze everything together. It's a little tricky. But there you go. Just push down on the frame and it lifts up on this. Lines it up. So you get one started to hold it. Sometimes I wish I had 3 hands. This is one of those times. Okay. And the other one. That one goes a lot easier because the other one's taking all the pressure. Tighten it down. Tighten this down. Move this around so we have some room. It's all under everything and just tight, all tangled up. Okay. Now we need a couple screws for that. They were here. When I cleaned, I moved everything out of the way. And a lot of times with screws, because I know I have like literally hundreds of them, I will just kind of push them around, and sometimes they get picked up and put in the screw box. But they're all the same. Okay, here's that one. Oops, some filament in there. Let's get that on there. Dirty. And this one. Stick's getting tired, time to plug it in again. Alright, so there's that. Now, one last thing I'm going to recommend you do at this point. Oh no. I have to take that apart again. Damn it. Now, I'm going to put that back in, not on film. Take all this back apart. Put that cable in for the screen. Oh, yeah. But anyway, there you go. See? I make mistakes. What I was going to say before I realized that at the last second there is what I would do at this point is I would bring this back down so it's at a good height. Unplug your cable. And work it out of this little support. And make sure it's not twisted. Because it kind of got wherever it needed to be put to go in there. And it got twisted around. So now it's nice and straight. Comes out straight, flat, perfect, like that. There we go. And as long as that's right, and it is, the key is in the back there. I'm going to plug that right back in. Just like that. Make sure the ears lock on. We will do something with the wiring here to kind of neaten this up a little. Probably some sort of a zip tie party. Not sure what I'm going to do with this just yet. I might just put a piece of shroud on it. You know, make it nice looking rather than just a piece of wire hanging out. There's some shroud kicking around. We'll figure that out next. Let me fix the video issue. I can't believe I did that. And I'll be right back. We'll put the screen on and we'll be all done with this. For the hardware anyway. Yep. That's where your video goes, right there. Don't forget to put that in when you put this back together. It's not fun. I would just kick it right out the back like this, and it'll reach over where it needs to go. Hopefully that should be enough. Yeah, it will be. So yep, just wrap it around the back here, and this little like notch in the cover, and put it all back together again. All right. Look at that. There's the cable I was missing. That's in place. I'm just gonna put a couple zip ties around, hold it there. Just like that. That's one. Here's the other. That's gonna sit fine. It is. Alright, great. Okay, last step of this for the hardware. We're gonna do the screen part now. So, screen and hardware. So all you do with this is this is gonna go right here. It has holes to line up, so it'll basically be straight, just like that, with this piece. And this is an angle to hold the screen for you. These are those canoe nut type things, so I just throw the bolts in first, like this. Some of these are a little tight to get your fingers in there to get it, to drop in place. So if you have a hard time, you can use needle nose to kind of like guide that in there. Like that one's kind of tight too. And I'm not even going to bother fighting with it. I'm just going to grab them. So I just grab my bolt and needle nose right here. And get that in there. It's just because of this plastic ribbing. It makes it tough to get your fingers in there to get those in there. Once they're in there, I just kind of hold it like this and put my fingers over it. And you just want to start these nuts. And they go one way only. It's with the, it looks like a boat. You want the wide part at the bottom. And the little part that sticks out. Do it up the top. And just get them started. You have to tighten them because you need the room. Just want them threaded like twice. 1, 2, something like that. Last one. Just like this. Okay. Not that, right, that. Now, these are those canoe nuts. Boat nuts, whatever you want to call them. So, the trick to those is you got to kind of spin it fast. And the reason why is when they go in, they're straight like this. But then they have to turn into the ribs of the extrusion. If you go too slow, they'll stay straight and they'll just tighten up against the plastic. But if you kind of give it a quick turn, you can actually hear it move. And then when you tighten it, you can check to make sure it gripped. It did. So again, nice quick, sharp turn like that. The inertia will straighten it out in there and then tighten it down. And this kit's is pretty nice and easy. Alright, that's on there. Screen, cable. I can go either way with this. Up and over is probably better than under because it won't be in the way. It won't interfere with your printer. And it just snaps in. Ta-da. That's it. Let's go ahead and turn this over. Okay, so there you are. That was basically a V2, or a Ender 3 original being converted to an Ender 3 1.5. It's not quite a V2. It's missing some of the stuff the V2 has. Power supplies up here, no drawer, no glass plate right now. He has his own glass plate. But for the most part, this is pretty much what an Ender 2 really is at its core. The only thing I would suggest that this customer does is add the probe. It makes life so much easier. I mean, he's already put quite a bit of cash into this right now, but that is an accessory I recommend everybody get into, especially with Riscock. The firmware we're going to be putting on this it makes a world of difference when it comes to leveling. Leveling will only take you a minute. It's crazy how fast it is with that once you get used to using it. But having said that, that's going to pretty much do that for the hardware side of this. I will probably record installing Riscock because I don't remember if I did or not before. It's a very quick thing to do. Just download it, load it in, and off it goes. I'm not going to cover doing a screen firmware unless this doesn't come up right. Just because I don't want to take this apart. It's not that hard. Here's another screen right here that I'm going to be putting on another machine. You just remove these 4 bolts and you pull, and this will snap apart. And like I said, inside of there, there's a board. That's the screen itself. And right around here, there's an SD slot. You would put the SD slot with the firmware for the screen on there. In this case, it would be a DWIN folder that you copy to the card. And then you plug your ribbon cable in without installing it, and you just turn the printer on and watch the screen. It'll put the text on and tell you when it's done. Shut it off. Pull the ribbon cable, pull the card out, put this back together, put it back on the printer. That's it. It's done. So it's really not a lot to explain there. You don't really need to see it. I just kind of verbally told you what to do with it. With this cable here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this all the way down, and I'm probably going to zip tie it somewhere. Either above or to the extruder, but I'm going to kind of leave it up to the customer and what he wants to do with it. I might just throw it here just to get it so it's not, in the way of anything. Those wheels feel a little rough. I might have to check those palm wheels out. Alright, so it's been sitting overnight, and I think maybe, oh no, never mind, I found it. He's got a lot of crud in his, oh, that's disgusting, you can see it. I gotta clean this out for him. There's some alcohol in there and clean that out. That's why it's thumping. There it goes. It's already better. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to zip tie this, like right up here, just so it's out of the way. It can still, do its thing. Customer can do whatever he wants with this cable after the fact. Maybe put it like that. I don't know. I'm sure they make a printable clip for this up here just to get it out of the way. It's just a very long cable. I mean, it can live where it is, but it might be dragging around on your print. So you kind of want to have it attached to something. You could put it, like I said, an extruder like that. That's not so bad either. I might just do that. Because then it's got plenty. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I like the way that looks. And it's not in the way of the filament. And it still reaches. Yeah, that's what we'll do right there. Alright, so I'm going to clean that up, and I'll start the process of installing the software now. Just wanted to show you guys this real quick. What I'm doing here is I've got a paper towel soaked with alcohol, and I'm just rubbing it in the groove here where these wheels will ride on the machine. I already did these earlier, the top rails here. I forgot to do this one, and I got to do the bed too. But this is just from the X. That's how much was built up on his rails. What that'll do is eventually it gets in between the wheel and the rail and can cause it to be bumpy, and that'll show up in your print. So every now and then, just take an alcohol or paper towel rather, fold it up, soak it with alcohol, and you're just gonna kind of jam it in these extrusions like that, and just rub it back and forth, and you'll see how much comes off. It's actually kind of shocking. You can feel after that it's nice and clean and smooth again. If I touch this Y bed, let's see if I get some of my fingers. It's all built up rubber. I can feel it. It's kind of sticky. And it's just collecting dirt and dust and everything else down there. Alright, for some reason the rest of the video disappeared on me, but all that was left to do at that point was install the firmware. That process is well documented on the internet, but if you need to know how, I can show a video of it. I may have done one in the past before. But that's all that was left to do was upgrade my firmware. If you are adding a Sprite, it is a different type of extruder, so it does need a different E-step value. A typical extruder on Ender 3 is 93.0 as your starting value. The Sprite is actually 424.9. So you have to change that quite a bit. There's a lot more steps for that motor to drive that extruder. So make sure you set your E-steps to 424.9 as a starting point when you're calibrating your extruder. Other than that, I hope the video helped you guys out. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks. Bye.